So you can't shift your presence without feedback. So how do you ask for feedback at work without feeling exposed or defensive? And today I'm going to show you how to gather it in a way that feels grounded specifically and actually useful. And here's the truth, a lot of quiet professionals avoid feedback entirely, and not because they don't want to grow, but because asking feels like emotional exposure. And receiving the feedback feels like confirmation of every fear that you've ever carried about how people see you. But feedback isn't a verdict, it's a lens. And you can't shift your presence or truly shift it without understanding how you're currently being perceived. And you can't understand how you're currently being perceived without getting that feedback deliberately, thoughtfully, and with the emotional steadiness to take it in. So today we're going to talk about that. And before we begin, if you haven't downloaded the Quiet Leader Identity workbook yet, it is free. It's in my links below. And it will help you understand the version of yourself that you're growing into, and not just hypothetically, but very practically. When you're deciding how to interpret that feedback from others, this is going to then open your mind differently to help you achieve that outcome that you want, because then the two aspects around perceptions and your identity will be mirrored to one another. So let's talk about what feedback actually is. So, feedback is nothing more than information about the impact of your behavior and not the intention behind it. It's not your worth, it's not your potential. When someone says that I'd like to see you speak up more, they're not saying you're not good enough. What they're actually saying is that there's something in you that we're not fully seeing yet. And when someone says, I'm not always sure where you stand, they're not saying you're unclear. They're just saying, I want to understand how you think. And feedback becomes easier when you stop treating it like a commentary on who you are and start treating it like it's a guide moving you forward in who you're becoming. And this is the mindset shift that allows a lot of professionals to grow exponentially faster than they've ever thought possible. And most people think that they avoid feedback because it's uncomfortable, but underneath that discomfort is actually something deeper. It's the fear that if people see us differently, even positively, we won't know how to sustain it. And this is also the worry that any attempt to change will be rejected, especially when your colleagues have known you as someone who's quiet or reliable for years. And you might worry that they'll interpret your efforts wrongly, and they'll question your intentions, or maybe they'll assume that you're trying to take on a role that doesn't fit. But here's the truth you need to carry. Your colleagues don't need a new version of you, they need a clearer version of you. A version who speaks not because they're trying to impress, but because your insight has always been valuable. You're not surprising them with something brand new, you're just revealing what has always been there. So here's the part that a lot of professionals often overcomplicate. Asking for feedback doesn't require dramatic vulnerability or emotional disclosure. It actually just requires clarity and specificity and a willingness to hear what someone else has to say. You might want to ask, I am working on showing up more clearly in meetings when I contribute. How is it landing for you? Or when you think about my communication style, what strengths stand out to you? Or in which types of discussions do you think my voice would add more value? And these questions do something subtle, but it's powerful. They guide the other person to give you feedback that is useful and specific and forward looking as well. So you're not looking for reassurance, you're gathering that data. And when you gather data with this type of emotional steadiness, something shifts inside of you because you begin to feel more in control of your development instead of wondering in silence how others experience you. So this is where the knowing and doing gap becomes real. Many people intellectually understand everything that I've been saying in my videos, and they understand the psychology, the identity layers, and the communication techniques. They know why they've stayed quiet and what it would take to show up differently. But the moment they try to apply it in a real meeting with real people, with real pressure, the old patterns come back. And not because they're incapable, it's because they're unprepared. Because humans don't change behavior sustainably in isolation. Just like you can't see your own posture without a mirror, or you can't see your own presence without a sounding board. You need a place to practice. You need a place to rehearse your wording, and or a place to process feedback without getting into self-doubt. And you need a place where your identity can expand safely without social consequences. And that's why I offer my coaching program. It's not a way to lecture or to give you false motivation, but it is a structured, confidential space to develop the behaviors that shift presence and influence perception and build visibility. And most people actually underestimate how powerful it is to practice speaking up with someone who understands the complexities of organizational life, the nuances of culture and identity. And that practice, that guided, deliberate, protected practice is what closes that knowing and doing gap. So here is what I want you to walk away with. Your voice has always mattered, your insight has always been valuable, and your capability has never been in question. What you've needed is permission to let your presence be seen. And that is your own internal permission. And now that you understand yourself more clearly, now that you have the language, the structure, the reframes, and the practices, you're ready to grow in a way that is aligned and sustainable to who you authentically are. And if you want help applying what you've learned, if you want a safe place to practice new behaviors, get a clearer version of how you're being perceived, and develop your presence with confidence, I invite you to book a 15-minute clarity call with me. It is going to be a simple conversation where we will talk about where you are, what you want to grow into, and whether or not my program is the right support for you. And there is no pressure. It's going to give you clarity that you need and one or at least two actions that you can take with you into your job today. And if you don't think this is the right time, you can download the Quiet Leader Identity Workbook and continue working through your identity shift privately. And it's designed to meet you exactly where you are. So thank you for being here, and thank you for choosing to grow in a way that honors who you are. And this is just the beginning. Your next chapter starts from here.